Now, who thought that in 2014, when the original film came out, that we would be here in 2023 with Chapter 4? But does this franchise still reach the same hype levels as the original? Or is it kind of stale, watered down, and repetitive? Over the top? Let's talk about it. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and this is just my opinion. Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just My Opinion for my John Wick Chapter 4 movie review. And if this is your first time finding me and you happen to like the video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing. All right, guys, here we go. John Wick Chapter 4, and my goodness gracious, look at this runtime right here, 2 hours and 49 minutes. To be honest, that really doesn't bother me as long as the material is good, and we're going to talk about if that's so or not. Now, this is being directed by Mr. Chad Stahelski. This is what the gentleman looks like right here. And if we just scroll down and look at his filmography, he has been in charge of the entire John Wick franchise, the whole 4 movies right here, 1, 2, 3, Parabellum, and now Chapter 4. I am proud of my collection. I have it right here. I got the John Wick 1 right there, also John Wick 2 and John Wick 3, Parabellum. Let's look at all of these right here. Beautiful, beautiful. I am glad that I all have these. And when I was going into this film, my expectations were super duper high. I kept hearing nothing but positive words from everybody. The creators were still here from the past. They were talking about that 4 and 5 may be shot at the same time. And so, yes, I was really, really excited. I love the cast. I like the whole premise of this. You know, this man is coming back to get revenge for murdering his dog that his dead wife gave him, and it's just nothing but action on top of action on top of action. Yes, my expectations were through the roof. I wanted this to be one of the best films that I saw all of 2023. And at the time of this recording, I have seen the film twice. I did get lucky and was able to see it early, but I wanted to see it again just to make sure that my feelings were still valid, and that's what brings us here now. But before I get into the nitty-gritty, before I talk about all my likes and dislikes, let me tell you exactly what this film is all about. John Wick uncovers a path to defeating the High Table, but before he can earn his freedom, Wick must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. Now, of course, if you go into this movie having seen the previous 3, you will have the best understanding of what's going on. However, if you have not seen any of the John Wick films, I still think that you can have a great time with this movie. Just know that John Wick is the good guy and everybody else around him is the bad guy that's trying to kill him, and we want John Wick to win. And because of what they put into this film, I still think you can have a great time. But again, if you have a chance to check all these out, go ahead and do yourself a favor. You will have a good time. And off the top, guys, I love this film in more ways than one. The first being is I love how they expanded the universe, this John Wick universe, not across the country or just the Western civilization, but all across the world, that we have this high table, these billionaires that have their hands, their strings into everybody's pockets. I love that. I think it's a great story. I think it always gives you something to look forward to, and just the expansion of these characters, their way of life, this entire universe is one of the best things about this entire story. One being is because it could be true. We do know that people that have a lot of money, that are multimillionaires, multi-billionaires, that they probably have a lot of control over the way that the common folks like myself live our lives, and how they put that into this movie in their own unique way really stood out to me and made me love this film even more. And the next thing that I like about this movie is it is unpredictable. After 4 films, things can get quite repetitive, but that's not the case in the John Wick franchise. They're still able to deliver some surprises that you will not see coming, and I really like the fact that I had no idea how this movie was going to end, and it was a surprise for me, again, in more ways than one. And the next thing I loved about this film is the cinematography. It was just beautiful to look at. Seeing John Wick travel across the globe and all these different territories, there's all types of bright colors and neon lights, especially when the character gets over to Japan. I really do like that. It's an eye pleasure, and I think you'll have a good time with that too. The next thing that I love about this movie are the characters. Now, the returning characters I love. Of course, we have John Wick being played by Keanu Reeves. He's great, the titular character. We also have Lawrence Fishburne, who's back as the Bowery King, and Ian McShane as Winston. I love them in the past films, and I love them even more in this film. But we have a few new characters as well. Donnie Yen coming in as Kane. My goodness gracious, I have been a fan of Donnie Yen since the last time I can remember. He's always been a badass in every film that he's been in, and this is one of the most badass I've seen him in any movie. This guy right here is serious. He is very skillful. He is funny, and he's also a good person too. I love the relationship that he has with John Wick. It is quite complicated to say the least, and that does make the film that much better. We also have Hiroyuki Sanada as Shimazu. I loved him as well. First time I seen him pop up on the scene for me in any movie was The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. I have been a fan of this man ever since. He was recently in the Mortal Kombat reboot that came out a number of years ago, and he is a badass in this movie as well. I love this character, and I wish I could see more of him. We also have a new gentleman by the name of Shamir Anderson. I am not too familiar with him. He just popped up on the scene for me in this film. He is known as the Tracker or Mr. Nobody. And I liked him. Just keep it plain and simple. I like the guy. He can track things his ass off, and he did a great job with this movie, so I love him as well. We also have Scott Adkins in this film. I recognized him as soon as I saw him, and I knew that he was in this film before I saw the movie. He's a real life martial artist and does a lot of martial arts films. And I think he did his thing in this film as well. He is a bad guy, and I like the back and forth that he had with John Wick as well. But guys, we got to talk about Bill Skarsgård as Marquis in this film. He is the villain. He is the antagonist. And my goodness gracious, y'all, he is one of the most badass villains that I've seen in quite some time. And that's solely just from his presence and acting. I don't even want to say he's much of a physical threat in this film, but man, he really did get the job done when he popped up. I was afraid of this man. I was saying to myself, okay, do not piss him off or he is going to send the cavalry after you, and there's nothing that you can do about it. He is a powerful character. He's smart. He's witty. He has done his homework, and this is somebody that you do not want to piss off, or you're going to be dead. You're going to be dead. I'm going to say it one more time. You're going to be dead. And we got to talk about our late brother, Mr. Lance Reddick, who unfortunately passed away about a week before this film. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was not too familiar with this actor prior to John Wick. I know that he was very popular when it comes to the show The Wire, and that's just a show that I was not able to see. But everything that this man had to bring to the John Wick franchise was fantastic. Unfortunately, again, he did pass away about a week before this film came out. And in the film, once you see it, his performance will hit you that much harder. I think he did a great job. This brother was only 61 years old, looked great, but unfortunately, his time is up. And we have to give our shout outs and praise to this man. Rest in peace, Mr. Lance Reddick. We will miss you. Now, the main thing I wanted to see this movie is the action and the fighting, and my goodness gracious, it is nonstop. It may even be exhausting to people, but they do not hold back on giving you the action, the fighting, and the violence. This is a very violent movie. This is a very intense movie. This is a very intricate movie when it comes down to all the fighting, and I loved it. Every time we get a new John Wick movie, they step it up when it comes to the action and choreography and weapons. I know in Parabellum, one of the highlights in this film right here was some knife throwing. And there's a little bit of knife work in this film as well, but they also throw new weapons in there as well that you haven't seen in the past 3 films. And I love that. And they're used to the best of their ability. They don't hold back, and you will be satisfied if you are a fan of these weapons that they use in this movie. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you're going to be saying to yourself, ooh, I love that weapon right there. And I thought they put it to good use. But for the most part, guys, when you go into this movie, you're just really wanting to see somebody get their ass kicked, and it makes sense to why they're fighting. I don't like pointless fighting. I do like plot within my action, and you get all this. I got everything that I wanted in this movie and more. So that's going to sum up the things that I did like about this film. Now let me transition to some things that really didn't work out for me. And it's the same thing that kind of happened in part 3, John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum, is John Wick is invincible. No matter how much this guy gets beaten, he will always get up and continue fighting. And in this film, I have to say it was just a bit unrealistic. That doesn't mean that I didn't have a great time. I still had an awesome time watching this film, but seeing him getting hit by cars and being able to get up and walk away, seeing him able to jump out windows, land on cars, and he just dust off his shoulder, seeing him kicked off balconies and fall into the ground more stories than one. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. This is just a bit over the top. They did the same thing in part 3 to where I was just saying to myself, there's no way that this guy can survive all this. And I will say it's the same thing in part 4, but to even higher levels. And to be honest, they did kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. The next thing that I love about this film is it is also set up like a video game, and I'm bouncing back over to my positives. And I like that. Like each stage John Wick goes through, the boss gets harder and harder and harder to defeat. And I love that. But at the same time, there's so much action and choreography and fodder that he has to get through that all of it can be quite difficult to choreograph. What I mean is, I've seen this film twice. Sometimes if you really pay attention when he's fighting certain people, when he's being is like 2-on-1 with somebody, when he's fighting 1-on-1 with this person, every once in a while, if you pay attention, the person over here gets hit and they're kind of just going like this in midair, like they're in a trance or something, and waiting until John Wick turns around to get back into the fight. And that is a bit unrealistic right there. They could clean it up. And that happened like a couple of times, maybe, 3 times in this movie. And I caught it a lot the second time I watched it. It didn't really happen that much during part 3. I do remember one scene in particular where John Wick was teaming up with Halle Berry. During that scene, they did that. And I saw it a number of times in this film. Also, towards the end, John Wick is in a car, and it is a badass car gun fight scene. I mean, it's crazy the way that he's going around in a circle executing people. But just a few minutes before that, some of the villains, some of the bad guys have the drop on him outside of the car. They're shooting at him, but they decide to run up to the car while they're shooting and stick their arms inside the window. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you have a gun. The point of a gun is so you can eliminate your enemy from a distance. Like, don't walk up to John Wick to where he's close enough for hand-to-hand combat. That doesn't make any sense at all. So I really didn't like that. And again, towards the end, this guy's getting hit by cars and he's still able to get up and walk with minimal damage. And I'm just like, what the hell? And the last thing that I did not like is, if you've seen John Wick Chapter 3, you know how it ends. And small spoiler, he was beaten to crap towards the end of this film. I do not like the way part 4 started off. There was a jump in time, and I wanted to see exactly what happened from the end of part 3 and the beginning of part 4, but we didn't get to see that. They just fast forwarded, and that really clocked me out. And my last gripe, I thought that was the last one, is I just kind of wish I would have saw more of Lawrence Fishburne. I like his character, but he was barely in this movie, and that is just wrong to me, in my opinion. But those are the things that I really didn't like about the film, and there's much more positives than negatives. And if I had to rate the John Wick films, I would say that part 1 is still my favorite. Part 3 is my second favorite. Part 4 comes in at number 3, and part 2 is the last. And so it goes John Wick 1, John Wick 3, John Wick 4, and then John Wick 2. I still love them all, but that is my ranking. And I'll go ahead and give my rating for this at the very end out of 10. But for now, guys, that is just my opinion. And I want to thank you so much for tuning in. If you did enjoy this video, please go ahead and give me the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you do subscribe, guys, you're going to get movie reviews. Also, all of the Oscar-nominated films that I reviewed in 2023. Also, some spoiler movie reviews, series reviews, a weekly movie news roundup show covering Bel Air Season 2, Snowfall Season 6, some trailer reactions, some interviews, and some fresh out-of-theater reactions. And guys, I want y'all to check out my latest review on my channel right now. It is American Maroon. Yes, from Tariq Nasheed. It is his 8th documentary film. I really enjoyed it. Check it out. I think you will too. But if I had to rate John Wick Chapter 4 out of a 1 out of 10, I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. Yes, an 8.5 out of 10. But guys, again, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget that my name is Brandon Kidavery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.